Yeah, that's the other, that's my ultra like.
So don't say anything too audacious?
You're in the middle zone.
It's a lot, you know, to try and think where to plant my feet on. I will take a footstool if that would be, if we have one. Yeah, my feet dangling. Maybe else had this happen. It's really interesting, watch this. It's very well
Special
on the
table.
future page. I have boards and committees that always makes me super.
Can make any difference.
Again, sometimes it'll actually open the oh, so that would open. Like, it doesn't make any sense. I have to try it on an additional device. So when is the ABC meeting to do their internal discussion?
Nobody here. You guys.
And he did it. Probably what he said. Hey, Chris Eldred brought Venmo and.
Really? Did you bring it up for everybody? No. Oh, looking that way.
That's like 2 steps forward.
2 people used it.
Where would be?
One was my wife.
And one was Josh Turner. I saw him sitting there on his phone. That's so funny.
Connor, I'm waiting for, what's your?
It's 6:59. I say we start on time.
You want the lights changed for the screen or?
Well, let's see it.
It's 5:59. Correction.
Yeah, just wondering.
Fast meeting. Time to adjourn.
Barrington's in another time zone, isn't it?
I mean, it feels like it sometimes. Have you driven from one side to the other?
No,
Should be time zone.
that's too hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have to have reasons, right?
Yeah.
It's like part of the, to get to a road, I don't remember what the road's called. You have to go into Nottingham first, then go back into Lee, because there's no way to get directed to it. But
We've got the bulb of a cul-de-sac that's in Barrington. The entire rest of the road is in Stratford. I mean, it's, your neighborhood is Stratford, and the kids go to Barrington schools. Fortunately, Stratford's kind enough to plow it for us.
Well, that's nice. All right, it's 6 o'clock. Call the meeting to order. First order of business is to pledge allegiance to the flag. If you'll all stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next order of business is the Regional Fire Collaboration Working Group. I'll turn it over to Connor.
For now, that's terrific. Thank you everybody for being here. I'm Connor McIver, I'm the town administrator in Barrington. As you know, we started this process in June of last year, or this year, excuse me. And the purpose of this meeting is progress report, right? We heard a directive from the select boards to join this working group. We developed a charge, and we've been hard at work, led by the chiefs with a lot of support from the community members and certainly the select board members. We've met 7 times, and we're here to present a progress report, go over some materials we prepared, and more importantly, get input from the select boards and start to discuss next steps. I think it's important to point out that the reason we're here, the reason we got together in June is because our fire chiefs and the men and women behind them had the courage to speak up and say, we're concerned about the future of the fire service. We have concerns about staffing, we have concerns about safety, we have concerns about providing the level of service that our communities have grown to expect. as the fire service evolves, as the needs of pressing in each community evolve. And so that was the impetus for us to get together and start considering what possible solutions there were, how we could work together to consider possible solutions. And I point that out because as somebody not from the fire service and not intimately involved, I think it's easy to assume that that is something that that might not happen in a normal course of events in an industry like the fire service. So we're very fortunate to be led by all the men and women in the 3 fire departments and be willing to put their hand up and say, we need to be thinking about something different. We need to approach this different. So the select board, for their credit, listened to the fire professionals. We got together in June. That was the start of the charge that this working group had. The working group formed. All 3 select boards approved that charge, which is in the materials. And like I said, we've had 7 meetings, and the work of this committee has really been the fire chiefs and their staff. The community members and the select board members have been excellent sounding boards, and we've refined and revised the work that we've done with their input. But I think a lot of credit goes to the chiefs and their staff for where we are today and what we're going to go over. So we're going to do introductions in a moment to the rest of the working group, but a couple of items I wanted to point out. So the process for tonight is going to be going through the strategic plan document. So all of the board members have a printed copy. There's some extras up on the table there if anybody in the audience wants one. It's also available online. This is a document that the working group developed and approved. And so this will kind of be the guide for tonight's progress report. Included in this are short-term and long-term goals. The way the committee has looked at that is the short-term goals are operational. These are things that the chiefs have been working on, and we've made a tremendous amount of progress, and we look forward to reporting on that. The long-term goals are more political action items, things that are going to require an action of the boards to consider further. And so we have a draft of those goals and the objectives as part of those goals, but we want the select boards to weigh in and give direction on those long-term goals and a potential timeline. So the working group charge set out meetings up until this joint meeting. And there was a note that it may continue into 2026, but that's a request of this joint meeting. Based on what you hear, we want you to consider what you think the role of the working group could or should be into the future. So after you hear the presentation and we talk about the progress on short-term goals and looking for feedback on the long-term goals, as we wrap up, we're going to be looking for some direction on where the work goes from here, if anywhere. So other printed materials that you all have at your table, and there are extra copies up at the entrance. A copy of the presentation, so you can follow along up here. Again, all of these materials are available online. Copy of the agenda, which kind of walks through the progression for tonight. And then the last document is, and maybe one of the more important ones, is an informational brochure that basically summarizes the charge that was established for this working group and provides some of the preliminary data. And the real audience for this brochure is the average resident in any community, to give them an idea of what is this working group, what is the purpose, why are we doing this, and where do I find more information. And you'll notice on the front of that, each of the 3 communities' websites are listed so that members from those communities can go to their own town's web address and find information about the working group, who to contact for more information, and the such. So if there are extras up there on your way out, feel free to take a couple, give them to friends and neighbors, and certainly it's available electronically also. Only other logistical item, this meeting is being recorded. Thank you to the town of Lee for facilitating the meeting and having that recording. So we will have this meeting available online afterwards for anybody who couldn't make it and is interested in this progress report from the working group. So if there aren't any questions, we'll proceed into introductions. That's the agenda. And so if we will, I'd like to start introductions with the community members of the working group. Mr. Sundberg, if you're ready.
Sure. Hello, everybody. My name's Don Sundberg. I moved to Madbury in 1978 on Garrison Lane. At that time, it was called The Project by people in town. And a little road of 30 houses were all new from outside of New Hampshire. That was an interesting thing. Just prior to the time we arrived, there was a grass and brush fire between the houses on Pudding Hill Road and Garrison Lane. And it caused a little bit of concern by the neighborhood. It was put out, but the neighbors were unsettled, and that's one of the first conversations we had as a family with the neighbors in town. I think then we all fully realized what a all-volunteer fire department meant. The Madbury population at that time was 800. It's now 47 years later. The population is now 1,800. We still have a all-volunteer fire department. But during those 47 years, the townsfolk have always approved fire department's request for new or used trucks and equipment. We built a new safety complex. So in fact, that's all good news. We haven't yet faced the issue of personnel and whether we should have a more professional or full-time staff, especially as it relates to response time. I think that's the key phrase here. Obviously, a move in that direction would cause a budgetary issue for town. And my view is that it's seriously time to consider the future for this town. That's why I volunteered. So I'm happy to hear the conversation tonight and share with my other community members. So thank you, Connor.
Terrific. Mr. Lonato?
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. My name is James Lonano. I'm a resident of the town of Lee. First, thank you to the Lee Select Board for their support and to this committee. Thank you to Connor for leading our meetings, and thank you to the chiefs. I think everyone is going to be, I know I am, truly impressed with the amount of work that the chiefs put in to prepare the materials for tonight. And they've really been doing a lot of hard work in addition to what they do every single day for their respective departments. I've learned a lot in a short time, not just about my department in the town of Lee, but about the departments in the other two towns, Madbury and Barrington. There's a lot of things that affect our community right now, and there's a lot of things that will affect our community in the very near future. One of those things that I've learned is leadership. Barrington had their chief retire recently, and they went on a hunt for a new chief that started last year in the fall of 2024. And they were whittled to pull down to 4, and not one of them was a fit for the town of Barrington. And that's a challenge that Lee is going to face in the very near future as well. It's a unique challenge to find a good candidate for these types of departments, which are a little bit smaller. And there's a distinction I've learned between having an administrative chief or having a working chief. Administrative chief who knows how to prepare budgets, run the ins and outs, day-to-day operations of a department. And some of those candidates are going to come from larger departments and may not want to work in a smaller community. So that's a challenge that's facing. Or you have potentially on the other side a working chief, more experience with those on-scene operations, but lacks administrative know-how and how to run a modern-day 21st century department. So one of the things that we've been looking at is a refined and distinct command structure if there were a combination of the 3 towns into one department to combine the different resources and hopefully attract a better pool of candidates. One of the other issues is we're going to hear in great detail staffing, retention. Lee has full-time members and part-time members. We've moved away from an all-volunteer department, and that's worked out for us. Chief Nemeth has a dedicated officer who does fire prevention duties, going around conducting the inspections. And that's something, again, looking at a combined leadership structure, that's something that all towns will benefit from, to have those inspections done by a dedicated officer so that the administrative chief is free to do that job and not also be conducting, the annual inspections that go hand in hand with all the different businesses in towns. So there's a lot that I've learned. There's a lot to learn in this instance, and I'm looking forward to the discussion tonight.
Mr. Sylvia?
Thank you. My name is Dale Sylvia. I'm a Barrington resident. A little bit of background about myself. I'm a retired fire chief. I had 28 years on the job and also 20 in the Air Force as a firefighter. I retired as the chief out of Newington and the deputy chief out of Pease, near National Guard. I've served on the Barrington Budget Committee, and I'm currently the chair of the rec department, so I appreciate the problems that you're facing as far as municipal budgets and understanding. I'm here to talk to you briefly tonight about firefighter safety. It's something I'm very passionate about. I could talk about this for hours or even days on end, but I'm gonna try to wrap it up in a minute or two. What we all operate under is something called NFPA, National Fire Protection Association. All the towns do, we all do. To simplify it, you could kind of say it's the RSA's of the fire world. These are the laws that we have to follow. And I specifically want to talk to you about two standards tonight, 1710 and 1720. 1710 refers to how full-time departments have to operate, which would be what Lee is required to follow. And 1720 is for a combination and volunteer departments, so Madbury and Barrington would fall into 1720. And what 1710 tells us is you have to have 15 firefighters on scene in the first 10 minutes. 1720 says it depends upon the population of that particular area, but it's roughly 9 firefighters in the first 10 minutes. The reality is, we've never met it. We're never going to small towns, we never have. That's just the truth. We've sort of, in a half hour, we could have the world there. You can have 30 firefighters, 40 firefighters, but the first 10, 20 minutes is when it matters. And that's when firefighter safety, that's when someone's gonna get hurt, and that's when they're gonna either save your house or lose your house. Those first 10, 20 minutes are everything. This is not a case now of saying the world is falling, we need more money. That's not what this is about at all. That's not what this is. The reality is, it's just there's no manpower out there. And you can look at the timing, wherever it was, go back to COVID, go back 5 years, the manpower just is not there. It's not a question of throwing money at it anymore. The job's just not there. So the problem that creates is no one town can solve this. And in fact, we're all competing against each other. These chiefs, they all work together, but they're all fighting for the same firefighters at the same time. So not only, the reality is, and then they're all gonna lose to the bigger cities. So what we look at is firefighter safety, and it's really kind of interesting. Connor spoke to it a little bit at the beginning, talking about how the fire departments always used to say, we have everything under control, we can save the world. That's not the case anymore. It really isn't. And one of the things we talk about as firefighter safety is the physical aspect. But I'm gonna point out, and this is something we need to talk about more, is the mental strain and the capacity and the things like that it does. That is a firefighter safety issue. It's reality. So what happens is, these firefighters are taking it under themselves to solve the problem, and they're gonna go to bigger cities where it's safe, and that just makes our problem bigger and bigger. And no town, Lee cannot solve this, Barrington can't, Madbury can't. Nobody can solve this on their own. The bigger cities can't even right now. So where does that leave us? It doesn't leave us very many choices at all. It's not even a question of the best choice. There are no choices. So what are our options right now to solve this? In my opinion, and I think I speak for the chiefs so they can talk for themselves in a second here, the reality is we have to learn to share our resources better. That's what this is about. It's not a question of asking for more money, for more firefighters. They're not there. We have to learn to share our resources. And that's the short-term solution. And you're gonna hear from all 3 chiefs tonight talking about how we share that. That's our short-term goal. They're gonna actually present some stuff to you. The long-term goal, and we are not there yet, may not be sharing resources at all, but it may be combining our resources. That may be the wave of the future. We're definitely not there yet, but there's a lot of questions to be answered. But to get there, we have to learn to start sharing our resources. I'm gonna finish wrapping this up, going back to the firefighter safety aspect. This isn't a question of the sky is falling. It already fell. Firefighters are at an all-time low safety. The safety is at an all-time low right now, which means as residents, our safety is at an all-time low. That is simple reality. And we have to find a way of working together to fix that. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll introduce the members, the select board members of the working group, starting with Mr. Burke from Madbury.
All right, good evening. My name is Tim Burt. I'm on the Madbury Select Board. I don't really have too much to say that already hasn't been said, but I do want to thank Connor for facilitating the meetings the group has had and putting all the work behind the scenes, getting our minutes to us, our materials to us, has been a huge help of keeping the logistics of our group going at a pretty rapid pace. I've been really impressed with the pace of work that this group has done, but more than that, I continue to be impressed with the quality of work that the chiefs are doing. Just to echo that this whole concept came to us from the 3 chiefs, and that is unheard of. So when we have 3 chiefs coming to us with an idea like this, we really have to pay attention. And Dale's exactly right. This is collaboration. This is sharing that could potentially lead to combination, some version thereof. But the work that was done over these last couple of months, you're going to see. We'll kind of outline it for us of where we are, where we're going in the short term, and what are our options in the long term. From Madbury's perspective, we're in a unique situation. We're the small little town that's just kind of hanging on for dear life, trying to figure out what's what, and we're looking at Barrington and Lee for help. So we're in a unique situation where a group like this has been really informative for us to really help give us an option as to where we can go to improve response times and safety for our firefighters. Thank you.
Mr. Roby?
Hi, oh, sorry. No, just members, just that group.
We'll get the select board members after.
Sorry.
Hello, all right, thank you, Connor. The biggest thing for me is I learned an awful lot, and hopefully that will be transmitted to the people at the meeting and also the people that look online. There's a lot of good information that's going to come out of this particular meeting, but the thing I was most impressed by is the 3 chiefs. There was no egos, they worked collaboratively together, and it was a great experience. The whole committee, there's tons of people there that have lots of knowledge, and they shared it with the rest of us. So I want to thank all of them, but this particular information that's going to be shared, there's a lot of interesting stuff. I thought the most impressive thing was the call response. That is like, ooh, oh my goodness. We got particular issues and problems and stuff like that. So, like Dale said, sky is not falling, but I think we need to be proactive and do something about this particular issue.
Thank you. Mr. Scotia?
Can't see that. Well, everybody is so well spoken tonight, leaving me with very little to say, but just to echo the working group, through the weeks, the amount of times we met, the hard work that has gone in, super credit to all those guys, Scott, John, and everybody else, and excited for people to hear the work that went into this, and I think there's some excitement on the horizon. So, thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll have an opportunity to hear from the chiefs a little bit. Unfortunately, Chief Hurley wasn't able to make it tonight. I will go Scott Nevitt.
I think throughout my career, joined the department in '98 as a volunteer. I came through and was hired in 2004 as the first full-timer. And I took over as chief in 2014. I've seen our department progress. I've seen our department go through the ups and downs. There was a time where we were training all of our on-call members for them to then either get hired with us part-time or full-time, but then they were leaving to go to the bigger departments like Dale talked about. Throughout the last couple of years, I've put a great deal of time into why they're leaving. I've had great support from the board and the town, that we've looked at step programs, we've looked at the bunk room situation here, and everything does add up and it does matter to the firefighters. I think the fire service in general, we never want to say we can't do something. We always have to come up with the right answers. And I think that's why the chiefs work so well together. We do mutual aid every day. And then we don't go to the board or to the residents and say the sky's falling, because it shouldn't for us, because we always have to have an answer. So working with this group, I think everybody brought something to the table. It was really nice because although we worked with Barrington and Madbury a lot, there was different aspects of each department that I didn't know about. So we've compiled all this information. Like Connor has talked about, I felt like the short-term goals are things that the chiefs can do at this point that actually helps all the communities, including ours, because we only have 2 people on shift. So if we can have a Barrington engine come over with 2 more people, that's 4 firefighters and 2 apparatus. So we'll talk about it later, but we looked at a response matrix, there's different avenues. And I guess my biggest point is that throughout this whole thing, we want to evaluate everything. The fire chiefs and the group aren't coming to everybody saying, we need to do this. We just want to evaluate it and put it on the table.
Thank you. And unfortunately, Interim Chief Janelle had an emergency come up, and he is, in his place tonight is Assistant Chief Eric Lindsay. And I want to point out that in the absence of the retirement of Rick Walker, although John Janelle was appointed the interim chief, all of the officers, including Eric who's here tonight, Chris who's in the audience, and the others have closely supported the work of the working group and the operations of the fire department. So, Mr. Lindsay.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Eric Lindsay. Again, I've been on the Barrington Fire Department since '94. Pete Scott a little bit. Just because I'm older, yeah. Although I do have a little bit more hair than Chief Janelle. I am by no means standing in and trying to accept any credit that he has put into this. Chief Janelle has put a lot of time and effort into this. And yeah, this was, it was a slow realization, but it was a realization. I came to the realization 5 or 6 years ago. We were on the scene of a motor vehicle accident. Everything had been taken care of. We were getting ready to, we were waiting for the tow company to remove the vehicle. And I looked around and I was like, this is the same crew that would have been here in 1997. And you know, the truck had been replaced, and it's like, when do I get to get replaced? but in all seriousness, we're looking back, so we were looking at, there was a gap that, we had replaced people coming up through, and there's been no replacements, nobody's running us out. And again, there's a long history of collaboration back with Chief Hayes and Chief Walcott and Chief Doucette. They always got along very well. And that has continued up through, and that's kind of what started the conversation, is that there is very few ego between the communities and the chiefs. And with Chief Walker retiring, Scotty threatening it, but not really. No, he's not going to pull the trigger, but he's talking about it. And Chief Burley looking at retirement as well. That's when we kind of came to the realization that this was the time to start having this discussion. And although I thought it was going to be a big project, I had no idea the scope that Connor was going to have us bite off. So I'll stop wasting everybody's time.
Terrific. I think for the benefit of knowing who's around the table, if we could go around and introduce the balance of the select board members from each community, starting with Mr. Avery in Madbury.
Mark Avery, Madbury, nothing other to say than here to listen.
Susan Ossoff from Madbury.
Rebecca Hawthorne, Lee.
John LaCourse, Lee.
Dan Mancherick, Barrington. I would point out that we talk about fire and rescue. Today is the 50th anniversary of the sinking of the Edmund Fitzgerald. And yes, I would hope, actually this does have more relation here, because when the Fitzgerald went down, they started reevaluating the safety of the ships on the Great Lakes. And today they're very, very safe. Hopefully we won't have to force our firefighters and EMTs have some major disaster like that to occur. So I look forward to this. I think we mentioned this 5 or 6 years ago, and everyone thought, oh, pretty weird stuff. And then I think the chiefs have put it together very nicely and brought it to reality, other than just a, wow, that's an interesting thought. So thank you to the chiefs and all the people that worked on this committee.
Alex Samaco, Barrington Select Board.
Terrific, thank you. And we have staff from both Lee and Madbury here. We also have representatives from Frisbee Memorial Hospital and McGregor Memorial EMS and UNH Dispatch. And it's worth mentioning that the stakeholders outside of these 3 communities have been an integral part of the process. They've attended meetings, they've provided input, and so we're not just operating in a bubble or on an island. This work The minutes were shared far and wide, and we brought stakeholders into meetings, and glad to see them here tonight. Moving forward, so as I said, we're going to walk through the strategic plan. So you can follow along in the presentation or in the strategic plan, but this document really captures the work of this working group. And so the working group has approved this strategic plan. We're going to be asking the boards collectively to consider approving a version of this strategic plan to guide any future work. So the beginning of the strategic plan will be the part we'll kind of fly through. We are all familiar with the charge. We got together, this has been approved by the 3 communities. I'll point out that the charge in the process of the working group is really summarized on the inside of this trifold. And so the challenges facing the fire service, the process, what do we need to pay attention to? And then at the bottom, that collaboration continuum, which is where are we now? What can we do? When you hear Chief Nemeth talk about the short-term goals, the operational things, you'll see the progress that has already been made in those areas. And then in the potential, those long-term goals, and all the way to a fire district, a regional fire district, what is possible? Where could we go here? And so to the chiefs, are there any challenges that we didn't hit on in the introduction roundabout that you want to get out on the table now? Terrific. Any, in terms of the process, we'll see the short-term goals, we'll see the data analysis, and we'll hear about that. Questions from select board members? I guess I should have mentioned this earlier. We're gonna have a dedicated time for select board discussion and really dive into it. But by all means, raise your hand if you want to pause on a slide, ask something of your chief or the community member from your community. Hey, what does this mean to you, or how does this affect our community? Do that. So before I move on, any questions about the charge or the process up to this point before we get into the meat and potatoes? Terrific. So we'll start with short-term goals, and I think I will hand it off to Chief Nemeth to kind of walk through this process, and I'll run the presentation, and we can take questions as it comes.
From the June 16th meeting, it came to our attention that we don't know everything about each department. So we wanted to do data collection and analysis as a group. We wanted to look at different short-term goals, such as combining our SOGs, the run cards, and our joint training. Currently, we're working with UNH Dispatch, and all the 3 chiefs are looking at standardizing, can't say that word, looking at the format of our run cards and combining them so that it makes it easier for dispatch when they pull one of those run cards. It's the same format for all 3 communities. Joint training.
Chief, stop using acronyms. Some people don't know some of those things. What's a run card? What's an
SOG.
Yes.
So the run cards are our mutual aid agreements that we have with all the communities. So if we have a structure fire, last night Barrington had one, they went to a 3rd alarm fire. Dispatch can pull that run card, that piece of paper, and look and say, okay, it's a 1st alarm fire, Lee, Madbury, Barrington, Durham Fire, Rochester. We're gonna call all them to help them out on the scene. So the formats that we have as communities are all completely different. We've tried to get them similar to make it easier for dispatch, so that's why we pulled them into some of these meetings, sat down with them, and we're gonna come up with a new format that works best for them. Calling the fire departments, I just asked dispatch to do it. I don't, they do a great job, but to make it easier for them, we'll make it easier for us. The joint training, we've talked a lot about that. We've looked at, we use a EMS program called Prodigy. We've looked at doing that together to see if it could be cost savings. A lot of this, we're trying to do some cost savings. With the Prodigy, we can actually set it up so that we can do a training. Somebody in Lee can put together a program, but Barrington and Madbury can review that and do the same thing. We have all the same protocols. We have similar equipment, so we can work together in those avenues behind the scenes with programs that we can develop. The other thing with the joint training is getting more members to train together. Currently, if you look as we go forward at the data collection, you can see the makeup of each department. Some of the departments have bigger on-call staffing, others have small. But there's no training for, like in our department, our on-call members, if they come in, they can do training, but we don't have a Thursday night training like we used to in the past. We've transitioned to part-time and full-time. So our on-call members in Lee can actually go to Madbury or Barrington and train with them. The SOGs that we're talking about, standardized operating guidelines. We give those out to all of our employees, and it kind of, it's like a step-by-step on how we handle car accidents, structure fires, that type of thing. So if we can standardize those, the 3 communities, if our firefighters from Lee go to Barrington, we know how we're gonna operate, we know, you know, what's expected of us. Okay, click to the next. So the short-term goals, we wanted to pull together all of our data collection and review it together as a group. So we looked at demographics, financial, call volume, staffing and certification, apparatus and equipment, and we are looking at doing response time mapping. So this is some of the data that we pulled up together. We have a shared file that the group is reviewing all the time. We made a workbook Excel file that has all this data in it. So it just gives us a better, gives us all the information that we're looking for each community. And we are very different communities. Barrington's population is almost double Lee and a lot more than Madbury. The square mileage of Barrington is a lot bigger. But then if you look at population density, Lee has 225 people per square mile, whereas Barrington has 198, Madbury 155. So every community is completely different. It just brings the data to the focal point so we can actually review this and look at what we're dealing with. You have a slide in there for financial. We looked at the municipal budgeting, the fire department, and then the portion of each community's for the fire budget. And then the call volume. We looked at the total call volume for each department. Barrington has over 1,200 calls a year. Lee has about 700, and Madbury has 280 a year. They definitely fluctuate. In Barrington, they have their own ambulance, so they're responding to all their EMS calls. We contract with McGregor, but we still are first responders and go to all of the medical calls in town as well.
It's worth pointing out, even with the differences, the data that we collected, if you look at the call volume per person, in terms of what it takes, the scale of the communities in response, very, very similar. And so operationally, as we're looking at the size of the departments and what the expectations are and the level of service that our residents need, as defined by the calls for service, there are similarities as well.
We brought together our staffing. So we have charts with how the makeup of each department is. Madbury is strictly on-call. In Lee, we have 5 full-timers, we have 15 part-timers, and we have 3 on-call. Barrington kind of has it all with their employees. They have 4 full-timers, 8 part-timers, 11 per diem, and 11 on-call. Then we looked at the staff certifications. We want to know what we have for, memberships have for certifications. It's kind of all over the table. If you look at a Barrington or even Lee, when we talk about our on-call members, some of our on-call members are just firefighters, some of our on-call members are just EMTs. Nowadays, if we're hiring part-timers or full-timers, they're gonna be at least firefighter EMTs. So this does make up the department. It's definitely different for each department and what they are. So this is a big one that I'm actually very excited about. We've worked with CAI to develop response maps. This is something that myself and John and Tom have talked about a lot extensively, that although if we don't want to go down the road of becoming a fire district, I think a fast way to make us all safer is to work together with automatic mutual aid. So when I say that, we talked about the run cards earlier, that dispatch is gonna call the departments that we're looking for. If we set up a run card with dispatch and there's a major car accident on 125 in Barrington, dispatch will know to start Lee Fire right off the bat. So when they tone Barrington for that same car accident, they're toning Lee at the same time. There's no delay in that. The company is going to provide us with different maps that actually will tell us how long it would take Lee Fire to get to Barrington, or different aspects of Madbury. It would do the same with Madbury coming into Lee and going into Barrington. The way I kind of look at it is, we have a lot of major routes. 125 goes into Lee and Barrington, so that's definitely a corridor that I want to look at for high hazards. We have a lot of commercial structures in that area. So those are the areas that I wanna look at with the automatic mutual aid. I think as chiefs, we don't wanna tax our departments. We could go on every single call, but we wanna evaluate this, look at the timing of how long it takes us to get to these certain areas, and then look at the high hazards things. Barrington Fire has TurboCam, we went there 2 weeks ago for a fire. So that's, commercial structure that we'd be looking at. Lee has Market Basket, if we had a fire alarm activation there, maybe we're requesting Barrington at the same time. Madbury has Route 9 and 155 that we can work with them if they have bad car accidents or whatnot. So it's just more data that we want to bring to the table so we can make informed decisions on how we want to move forward with doing all this. And like Dale talked about with NFPA 1710 and 1720, those are the times that we're looking at in the NFPA codes.
Eric, as unfortunate as it is we have such a recent example, but could you talk to the group about the response map that you see? I think there's a perception that Barrington's bigger, we spend more money on fire service, we have, the staffing, we still have call numbers. This map illustrates challenges that we face, and maybe using last night's example, can you talk about what this type of mapping and looking at responses means for Barrington?
Yeah, absolutely. Much like the other data that was on the previous slides, aside from all those numbers, just travel times, the map shows with our one station for 49 square miles, we have some long run times, and so there's the Route 4 corridor. Again, Chief Janelle's been working with McGregor and doing some automatic responses and working on how we can, blur those lines a little bit for some of those responses. And again, there's no, to reference the incident last night, where Connor's pointing on the map there, that's where the incident was last night. And there's no fast way to get there for us, there's no good way for us to get there. And as it was, Rochester was right behind Barrington. And that's not a political thing, and again, if the duty crew had been out on the call or whatever, Rochester would have got there first, and the reality is, when your house is on fire, nobody really, I might care what color the fire truck is, but in reality, you don't care what the name on the door of the truck is. And if we get realistic about it, the capital cost of having a fire department exist and all the overhead of the manpower, the people, the station, the training and everything else, but the actual per run, when somebody's house is on fire, you're gonna have to look long and hard for somebody from Madbury to go, yeah, I don't really want the Madbury fire truck going to Barrington. If somebody's house is on fire, if there's a legit emergency, and again, the whole term mutual aid, it's mutual. Barrington's gonna come to Madbury when needed. And just keeping those relations, in good health, and so that it is mutual and that nobody feels like they're getting abused, nobody's feeling like they're getting taken advantage of. And I'm kind of talking in circles. Does that answer the point that you were trying to make, Connor?
I think
Connor, if you like, I can provide a little bit of light, because I was looking at these numbers today.
Please.
So the tone went out last night at 6:42. Again, it was up in that area that shows, I believe it's a 10 to 13 minute response time. Our engine 2 was on the road within a minute of the tone going out. It took us 9 minutes to get onto the scene, and then our Rochester came directly after, and then our tanker was on 17 minutes after the tone on scene. That just Barrington, that only brought 6 firefighters to the scene. So when we're talking about scene safety and going interior, we only had 6 firefighters. How many did you guys have with Rochester?
3, 5, 6.
6. So we had a total of 12. We couldn't have done that without mutual aid. Madbury was toned at the same exact time that Barrington was toned. Unfortunately, they weren't able to get a truck out the door, but I know that they had a crew there that could have came. They just couldn't get the truck to the door. So we were we would have gotten more there. And Lee just happened to be, they already know that we rely on them a lot, and they already started heading towards the scene. That's just how strong of a connection that we have, between the communities, which is great. So they were also pretty quick to respond.
Thank you, Chris.
But staying with this mapping, this is response time. So this means that firefighters are at the station, and this is just the drive time. Communities like Madbury, you have to wait for the member to leave their home, drive to the station, get their gear, grab their truck, and then drive. So if you're looking at like this area in Barrington that it says 12 to 14 minutes, in Madbury, a community like that, you're waiting for the firefighter up to 10 minutes potentially just to drive to the station. So this is why we want to evaluate these numbers. I remember years and years ago, there was a fire in Barrington on Route 4, and Chief Walker looked at me and said he didn't care about the color of the fire truck. But also within our meetings, Mr. Bugby brought up that if he's having a medical issue, he doesn't care which ambulance shows up. He just wants the first one with paramedics. So that's why Barrington and McGregor have been talking and looking at this data to see, okay, maybe Barrington Fire can actually get to parts of Madbury faster than McGregor can, but McGregor can come into Barrington up Route 4 faster than they can. So we're just evaluating all the numbers the best we can.
And it's worth mentioning that this is just one of the scenarios that is being mapped for response time. So at their last 2 meetings ago, the working group authorized moving forward with the drive time mapping. Select boards authorized funding, thank you, that released the project. And so they made a quick turnaround for this first map. But for instance, looking at a town of Madbury, understanding that it's response time to the station and then drive time from the station, one of the scenarios looks at what the response time is in the town of Madbury just from the Lee and Barrington station. So to understand that if the Barrington station and Lee station are staffed, how soon can they get to all of the geography in Madbury, understanding that that might be faster than a Madbury firefighter responding to the station and then responding within Madbury. And similarly in Barrington and Lee, and so that component, and it's also worth pointing out that McGregor and Frisbee on the EMS side, those numbers will be looked at. And so there's a lot of data in the drive time maps that is being aggregated right now, and we hope to be able to review and make informed decisions on that. I want to pause here for a moment before we move on from data collection. It's a lot of data. This workbook that Chief Bennett mentioned, thousands of data points collected and a tremendous amount of work, crucial work. We can't make informed decisions if we don't understand what we're talking about and the similarities and differences of the department. So I know it's a lot of data, the information's all there. Are there any questions? Does everybody feel comfortable with the data portion of the work of the working group? Seeing head nods, terrific. Okay, so we'll move on from that, if everybody's ready. We already talked about this, but.
Yeah, I think we already talked about our standard operating guidelines. Working with Madbury and Barrington, they have some. Our standard operating guidelines have been updated recently, so I decided to share our resource with them. So if we're gonna work together, why not look at all the different options that we have? They're still working on updating their standard operating guidelines, but it's something that we wanna work together and have similar SOGs.
And as we look at long-term goals and things like staffing, the idea of being able to share staffing when they might show up at a station and the operating procedures and guidelines are identical from where they come from. And going back to the training, they're being trained on the same operating guidelines and procedures. They're being trained on the same equipment or the various equipment, and so that you'll hear more about that when we get to long-term goals, which is now.
So the group came up and we drafted long-term goals that we would like to look at as a working group. Obviously this can change. They're not in any real order other than the fact that we do kind of feel like goal 1 is something that we want to look at now and work our way to goal, I think, 11. And I guess at this point, the overall goal, if we could think if we are going to turn into a fire district, if that's what we want to do in the future, is if you look at a city like Dover, they have 3 stations, but those 3 stations are Dover Fire and they work together. They have the same standard operating guidelines. They have the same equipment. The staff can bump around to station. That's kind of, could potentially be a long-term goal, but I think there's different options that we can work together, that we don't have to be a fire district. We can share resources, we can share personnel. I just think we have to figure out how to get there. So goal 1 is looking at the station districts. If we look at those maps, and I know we have town lines, but maybe we can actually reevaluate the stations and who goes where first. We just talked about it, Route 4 we can get to faster than Barrington, so maybe we just kind of redistrict that area. And you gotta really not look at the town lines anymore and just figure out what's best for the residents. Response areas, same thing with the response matrix. In Rochester, if they have a fire alarm activation in a certain part of their community, the central station might send an engine and the Gonic station might send a tanker. That's what we want to look at. If we go to a fire up Route 4, maybe we bring our engine, Lee, because we can get there faster, but Barrington brings a tanker and Madbury brings a tanker. Goal 2 is staffing considerations. Is there an opportunity where our staff in Lee can cover shifts and work in Barrington as well in Madbury to help out? To do that, we have to get more data, look at what we're paying the firefighters, the benefits, human resources, a STEP program. Because if Lee's paying more than Barrington, we just talked about it, we're fighting all the time. They're not gonna go work in Barrington possibly for less money. Vice versa, if Barrington's paying more money. There's different avenues. Barrington has an ambulance, we do not. Maybe there's some firefighters that don't wanna work on an ambulance, but maybe there's some firefighter EMTs that do wanna work on an ambulance, so. Goal 3 is the staffing model. I wrote 24/7 coverage, I know we're all not there yet, but I think it's an opportunity that we need to look at. How do we wanna move forward with this group? Maybe we just continue with Lee and Barrington having 24/7 coverage, and Madbury's gonna take some time to get to that point. But we need to look at a staffing model for the future. Goal 4, we've combined all of our apparatus and equipment types into the workbook that we have, because maybe in the future, there's an opportunity that, like I said, Lee only has 1 engine, and we have a tanker in the rescue, but Barrington has a rescue and an engine. Maybe we can move some of these apparatus around and share the resources, so we're not buying a $1 million truck constantly that we have to replace. Also, there's opportunities in funding. If we're a district or we're working together, we can get funding through FEMA a lot easier. And then we can potentially save money on maintenance when we move forward with working together to combine some of our resources. Goal 5, emergency medical coverage. I sat on the OR board for the fire chief in Barrington, something I didn't even really think of because it doesn't affect us. In Barrington, they work with Frisbee, they work with McGregor, and they have their own ambulance. We contract McGregor. I think it's something we definitely need to talk about. The fire side to me, because I'm a fire chief, is easy. Working with McGregor and Frisbee in Barrington, we have to sit down and talk about the medical coverage and how we're gonna move forward with that.
Let's pause there for a moment. In the strategic plan, this is obviously just a summary, but in the strategic plan, there's a description of these goals and a more elaboration on the objective. You heard from the chief what that objective is. First, from the working group, and Ms. Lunzu as well, anything you want to add to those 5 goals for consideration from the group? And from there, I'd like to have some discussion with the select boards or among the select boards about those goals, and from what you've heard so far, if you feel like those goals are appropriate for your community and something that should be in the strategic plan moving forward. So first with the working group, anything to add on this set of the first 5 goals, long-term goals? Please, Mr. Milano.
I just wanted more so to echo Chief Nemit's comments about not looking at this as a matter of Madbury possibly losing control or Barrington giving resources to the other towns. We're all one community, and it's been said multiple times tonight. If I have a medical emergency or if my house is on fire at 2 o'clock in the morning, I don't care the color of the truck, the name on the truck. I just want somebody there within 4 to 6 minutes, you know? And I think that that really needs to be a focus for the community at large, because we're all in this together, we're all neighbors. Somebody mentioned earlier, there's a cul-de-sac that part of it is in one town and another part is in another town. Are we gonna fight over whose truck is connecting to which hydrant at the scene? Like, if my neighbor's house is on fire, I'm gonna help that neighbor. I don't care what town they belong to. So I urge not only the select boards here tonight, but the community at large to really think about this as, yes, we're helping the individual towns, but we're really helping each other. And that should be the focus. That should really be the goal, is that how can we best help each other to ensure that my house doesn't burn down in the middle of the night, that Rebecca's house doesn't burn down in the middle of the night.
On fire by house.
Yes. Or that, a medical emergency in Madbury is attended to promptly. Or the same thing for Barrington, a car accident on Route 4 in Barrington is attended to quickly, because lives depend on it. And that should be the concern.
Well said, thank you. Other members of the working group? Okay. To the select board members, and I know Chief Nemet said these aren't in order, but this is kind of, these would be the next steps. And so we'll talk more about next steps later, but what resonates with you about these set of long-term goals? And if we're going to continue working down this path and on a collaboration continuum, is this the direction that you feel is appropriate for your community? Please.
It seems to me, and I'm just kind of thinking off the top of my head right now, it seems to me that when we each have separate programs and then we coordinate, there's a lot of different considerations on who pays what, how much money gets put in one place, who puts up the money. But if we had a fire district, that we would tax that fire district as a separate entity, and that each of us would pay, each of us would have a part of that. It would seem to me that should be an early goal as opposed to working it up gradually. I'm just thinking that right now, so I'm ready for people to object.
If I may comment on that, a lot of the stuff that the departments have been working on are stuff that is, low impact, low cost, and quite frankly, should be done anyways. Everything kind of makes sense, it kind of jives. So the long-term goal of doing that, if that the direction of this committee is to continue in that direction, there's no harm done in having these things in place. If that doesn't work out, we haven't lost anything, we haven't cost the taxpayers a bunch of money, we haven't really lost anything by doing that. It's just formalizing some of those collaborations that have already been doing. So that's, I don't know how to word it properly, but the efforts that have been put forth are nutritional no matter what direction we go in my opinion.
Please.
I think at least for me, the ultimate goal is, how is this gonna help the communities? And a few people have stolen my thing about, I don't care what color the fire truck is, but the ultimate thing is, this is gonna help the people that live in those three towns, even if we just do the short-term stuff. It's gonna help those people because response time is important. If it takes me 17 minutes to get service and I'm dead in 15 minutes, I don't really care because I'm dead. So, but the thing is, it's important because if I have to, like, one of the things we found out is in terms of Madbury, if they have to come to the fire station, get in their equipment, whatever, if somebody else can get there faster, that's a benefit to that particular person. The other thing in terms of the benefit for people who have housing insurance, building insurance, whatever it's called. Home insurance, that's it. If somebody can get to your house faster, that changes the response time, that changes the experience factor. It's called something, Chief Nemet will tell me what it is. So if that number changes and somebody can get there faster, you get a cheaper price in turning your insurance. So there's a benefit to the homeowner for that particular purpose. But ultimately, I think it's a better service for people that live in those communities. I would hate to have somebody say, oh, geez, grandma died because they didn't get there soon enough. That's not acceptable.
Please.
Just to speak to, one of the things to speak into as far as making a fire district one of the first priorities, one of the things to consider is this is, as you can see, the amount of work that they've all put into this. If we were to get to the point that this has become a fire district, there is a tremendous amount of work that's gonna go in here, not to mention just the legal aspect, and the political. It's not only do we have to convince the people in this room, but the public itself. And to go right for a fire district at the beginning, we didn't want to lose momentum with this. So we're kind of working on the short-term goals and the building blocks. But even if we were all on board tonight, you're still looking at a couple of years before you would even consider getting to that point, just from the legal aspect, and the research is going to have to be done. So that's why you don't see that as a immediate goal. We're going to work on the short-term goals, show that we can make this, that they can be successful, and build from there. So that's why it's not an immediate type goal.
Mr. Avery, please.
Yeah, kind of on the same bandwagon. I think you can't go to a district until you know what you want the district to be. Otherwise, you would turn it all over to something to create whatever it wants. And if it's a district that's a separate political entity, I think that would be very responsible for us to do until we actually know what we're doing. Well, because then it has taxing authority. And there are things short of a district beyond what the work you guys are doing right now, too. Formal memorandums of agreement, sharing employees. There's a model of, this isn't literally what it'd be. You could say one town contracts the other town for the employees. So there are models that get you there. But I think this work is essential to any of those first, even if we do go district all the way. The other thing I was just going to say, goal 2 and 3, intertwined. I mean, they really are, because until you know how big your organization's going to be, it's hard to know how much you can afford. And it's good to separate them out, for planning purposes, but they've got to be, I think they have to be done in parallel because they just can't stand alone, kind of thing. And just a question, how many people do we need for all 3 stations 24/7, 365? In the past, I've done scheduling for 24/7, 365 and need a lot more than people would think. I think that'd be good to publicly let folks know.
That's an excellent point. Please.
Just to comment, one of the things I found interesting, and it's obvious after you look at it, but we're not alone in this kind of thinking. There are many communities in many states that have gone through this as they look at the growth of their community. I'm holding one in my hand from somewhere in Rockingham Fire in Vermont, I think. And so the whole series of information in there about their process, their history, whether they went with a fire district and went to the state to get approval with an RSA or not. So I think in that sense, exactly. So there are models out there for us to look at as we go through that would be informative. I think it would be a good thing to do.
Mr. Avery, I think you brought up a couple of excellent illustrative examples of what this would mean, right? So if we're considering adopting a strategic plan and working on these long-term goals, what could that practically mean? What is a situation that could come up? And I think there are 2 maybe topical examples, which easy for me to sit here and talk about a topical example in Lee and in Madbury. But in Lee, a topical example would be equipment, right? So relative to goal number 4, the next time that Lee or Madbury or Barrington needs to face the replacement needs of an apparatus or the repair needs of an apparatus, this goal could help us advise maybe Barrington, Lee, and Madbury collectively don't need 6 fire engines. Maybe we don't need 6 fire engines, and maybe the next time somebody needs to replace a fire engine, it would be better to buy or to look into purchasing a specialized piece of equipment that could respond automatic to all of the communities, or blurring the lines of what our apparatus looks like and what those replacement schedules look like. So just in terms of thinking about what could these goals mean, and if we're traveling along the continuum but not a fire district, those are real conversations that we could have and collectively decide. Madbury, as Madbury looks to work from an all-volunteer model to a staffing model, you mentioned contracting services. It might not be a matter of hiring 4 full-time positions to have 24/7 coverage in Madbury. But it could be a matter of working with Lee and or Barrington to say, how could we get somebody stationed in the Madbury station on this priority schedule? We know what our calls are. So those are very real conversations that work on these long-term goals could advise. And just in terms of managing expectations of if we're asking the select boards to start to allow work on these long-term goals from the chiefs, those are the types of conversations will come up. And so are those, how does that feel for, as select board members, you know, if the next steps end up being, hey, we're maybe gonna consider having one fire engine in our community and allocating these dollars elsewhere, or we're going to consider contracting a service to another community for staffing. How does that feel? Please.
I think we're moving in the right direction. I think we don't have any choice. We have to work collaboratively. We're a community at this point. You know, as a select person, I don't know, for many years, I've been watching how the fire department works, and it's been a struggle, watching Chief Nemeth trying to get people in, and then people leave continuously. The battle zone trying to get a 24/7, so I don't think there's any choice. So I wanted to bring up another piece of this thing. Don had mentioned that there's other areas that have done this already at this point. So what's the discussion with Nottingham, since a big chunk of my property is in Nottingham, my driveway's in Nottingham. Does Nottingham come, or does Lee come?
It's an excellent question, please.
So I think from the data that we've found and we've seen, Barrington's a huge community. So we are gonna work together, hopefully, on the automatic mutual aid. But at the same point, it's not gonna stop us from calling other departments.
Yeah.
So there are areas in Nottingham that we go to automatic right now, and they do the same for us. So that wouldn't change. It's just where the 3 communities gonna work together a little bit more. So Barrington, where they had their fire last night, is more closer to Rochester and Stratford. Barrington's still gonna call those communities first.
And I think as it relates to the increased collaboration, one of the things that was a topic of conversation early on is what's the right size to start thinking about this? And, you know, Chief Walker, for his purpose, you know, he was a huge proponent, this is the retired chief in Barrington. He was a huge proponent for this push towards regionalization, trying to find a solution. And if you ask him, the right size for a fire district is like the size of a county. And I don't say that to say, hey, you know, let's ring up the county commissioners and ask them to solve this problem for us. But I think how that conversation evolved was, it has to start somewhere. And if it starts somewhere and it makes sense and it works, then that's something that's a model that can be expanded. I think the one common thread that brought these 3 communities together was this idea of current and near future needs for leadership. And that seemed to create an opportunity where all the players were willing to check their egos at the door and just consider what does this look like. But I think throughout the process, the conversation has been, you know, if this is something that works, then it's expandable. And especially for a community like Barrington, there are a lot, every corner of Barrington is areas that we can't get to fast. You know, we have Stratford and Northwood and Nottingham that can get down here faster than we can. Rochester, where's Stratford's second station? Can Stratford get here quicker than us?
From their Crown Point station, yes.
From their Crown Point
Call
station. Right, so, I mean, even at a call station, Stratford could get to this part of Barrington faster than we could. And so, I think the hope is currently, you know, certainly maintain all of those mutual aid agreements that exist and leverage those and take what we learn to enhance those. And Lee is an excellent example with, it's Epping, right? The situation with Epping. I mean, there are addresses that are already automatic mutual aid. And hope that will expand if it makes sense. If it works, if it makes sense, take these lessons learned and share it.
Thank you.
Anything else before we move on to the second half of the long-term goals? Okay, terrific. Get us a contract right there. Okay, you got it.
So just continuing this, and I think we've just discussed it, to get our operating budget, we need to know what we're looking for between all of our departments. So goal 6 would be a leadership model. Do we look at having one chief of all 3 departments, which we don't need a fire district to do that? Do we look at having assistant chiefs in every community that are there more 24/7, and they're in charge of their town that they're working in? Battalion chiefs is something that the fire service uses, larger departments do, so a battalion chief would be on a shift 24/7, so they'd be in charge of all 3 stations when the chief or the assistant chiefs aren't there. Do we want captains? Currently, the town of Lee doesn't have any captains, we have lieutenants that run our shifts. But just this, there's all these different aspects of the leadership model that we need to look at. And something that we hit on earlier is our assistant chief does our fire prevention for us, for our community. That's something that you could use and have a fire prevention officer and maybe have one fire inspector to hit the 3 communities, so all the commercial buildings are getting the proper inspections that they need. I think determining goals 1 through 6, then we can look at an operating budget and potentially what we need to pay for all of this. I know there's different allocation models out there. My biggest thing that I keep saying is that throughout this whole process, we want to make sure that all communities are heard and everybody has an equal say. And I think there's some districts around here that people don't feel happy about on how things get voted on. And that's my biggest concern. I would like Barrington to have the same say as Madbury and the same as Lee. So it'd be 33 1/3. I don't know how we figure that out, but that's something that we need to look at. Do we look at the population, which that I don't think would work for having fair say for everybody. Property value, the call volume, there's all these different models that we can look at to make sure that it's fair for all the communities. And I think that's our biggest goal moving forward if we were to look at an operating budget. Goal 8, potentially regionalization. Goal 9, I don't think we have to be a regional fire department, but we can do regional training. We've already talked about that. Madbury and Barrington, we're going to be doing training this Thursday together.
It was last Thursday. That was my bad. Yeah, I got my wires crossed. It happened. It was successful. It was very successful.
I was going to show up this Thursday.
We were wondering where you were.
Red trucks only.
Red trucks.
You don't want to go. Goal 10, potential regional fire prevention, we just talked about that. And then goal 11, I think we have to look at a capital improvements plan if we all work on this together, and how we replace some of our equipment moving forward.
Members of the working group add anything to those second set of goals? Obviously, the biggest there is regionalization, but in terms of continuing this process.
You know, maybe the chief talked about this. One of the things that was a realization for me is like, we have a thing called a financial planning tool. It's not like the CIP, but we were planning on spending about $1.2 million to replace one of our engines. And with the whole situation with, 4 companies out there, it would probably be about 4 to 5 years, something like that, to get a new truck. So our chief did something, it wasn't sneaky, but it was very, very good in terms of finding one that was a demo truck. But can all these communities afford to spend $1.2 million, and it's going to only escalate? That's a lot for some other communities. So if we can share those particular resources, if it's a rescue truck or whatever it happens to be, it's better if we can pool our resources together. But 1.2, I was like, oh my goodness, 1.2. I specifically asked the chief, can you get one that's not so shiny, that's maybe cheaper? He kind of gave me this weird look, so I don't think that's possible. But yeah, that's important because these things are not getting cheaper. They're getting way more expensive. And we're all doing the same thing. We're all buying these particular pieces of equipment. If we can share them, that would be great.
Select boards. This set of goals, and as we continue, how do you feel about these goals?
I feel like the group's knocked it out.
I know Mr. Burke has something?
Yeah.
Yeah, just real quickly, speaking of goals, I just want to highlight something that maybe glossed over, and that was back to the short-term goals. Page 14 to 16 in the packet here, the strategic plan. You'll notice that most of those goals are actually marked as complete. And what I wanted to speak to was the pace of this group has been remarkable. And it's totally because of the chiefs working together and working very quickly on this. But from Madbury's perspective, we're in this discussion with you, and we're very interested on the progression of it. But we also need, hopefully, everyone to sort of acknowledge and respect where we are as a small little community. You see the demographics. You see that we're just all on call. We don't have any full-time employees in Madbury, never mind firefighters. We have a lot of challenges that are coming at us hard and strong, including fire, that we're trying to tackle carefully. But we recognize we also have to make decisions quickly. But one of the things I learned by being in this group was learning from the history of Lee and Barrington, of where you progressed and where you are now. And that's really helpful, but it's also kind of scary a little bit because we're still right here. And for example, Chief, you said first full-time was 2004, right? So you've had that model for a long time, where we don't even have that yet. So I hope you can understand where Madbury is coming from, that we're really trying to grapple all this in a short amount of time. So I would like the work to continue, because that's one of the things that is going to be asked of the select boards tonight, is to authorize this group to continue its work. But some of these short-term goals, although they're marked as complete, we want to see some time to make sure that they're working and that they're sort of, proof is in the pudding kind of thing. And it speaks to the continuum that we outlined. And I know everyone's sick in the group of me saying it, but I really want to see the continuum progress, not just a goal of fire district being put in front of others. Because I think it's important to explore the options progressively, because we might get close, but we might not have to actually go there. And that might alleviate a lot of concerns in the room about a taxing body, all the other RSA statutory requirements of that move. But if we keep progressing in that direction, that would be, I think, very smart. But the other thing that this group is going to be asking the select boards, and is asking, is for some direct input on these long-term goals. What do we want? How, what are these things that we're thinking of? Are there things not in this packet that you're thinking of tonight that should be included? But I think Connor described it as political decisions. Whatever name you put on it, it is stuff that the fire chiefs can't decide on their own. It is going to be up to the three boards to work on and discuss and decide and help move forward.
Others, please.
Yeah, so I had a
I apologize.
Sorry, I had a chance to sit down with retired Chief Walker before he retired and get his opinions on this, and I'm all for it. I think we need to keep going and continue exploring. I agree that we are in different places, and I think anything that hits goal 8, some sort of regionalization, is going to require some adjustment within each of the departments and maybe some further individualized development in order to get there. So I think that this should continue. I can't think of anything that isn't addressed here in the long-term goals, but I would really like to see this move forward, because I look at the map, I see that my house is yellow. I would certainly love to see that be green. I don't really care where it comes from or what color it is. So I would love to see this continue.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all want this to continue, and it's I think it's a way forward for us, because doing it independently doesn't work clearly in Madbury, but I don't think anywhere. And in terms of the goals themselves, I think we need the input from the professionals. For example, goal 6, we need to see, what do you think is an appropriate leadership model, and if there's several, maybe bring that back, but you're the experts. And the only other thing I was going to say is, somewhere in here, I think we maybe all use the same legal counsel, but I just want to have some input into what legal issues any of this might entail that we need to address.
So I'll bring us to the next slide just to keep this going. We'll have an opportunity for public comment, which I think is important, and then we're moving on to next steps and really talking about finalizing these goals, and then specifically a timeline, which we haven't talked a lot about. But before we have public comment, which Chair Bugby will manage, is there any other questions that the select boards have or discussions the select boards want to facilitate?
I have a quick question that came to mind as we were going over the demographics that we didn't really discuss in the groups that maybe I sort of missed, and that's the per diem. I just noticed Barrington has a big chunk of per diem, but you're the only one that has per diem. Could you just explain real quick how that actually works? How it benefits, or is it a benefit? And
I would make up a bunch of words and we'll have Connor answer that. Because it is semantics and to a point. It's not operational, so Connor's a better answer to that as far as the legalities and.
Peek behind the curtain. Chief Walker created a system in the department that the officers inherited. I thought I understood it. The officers knew they didn't understand it. We got together and realized, no, none of us understood it. So it's a distinction without a difference. I mean, they're essentially part-time employees, but they don't have regularly scheduled shifts. So we have a variety of pots of money in Barrington, certainly the operating budget, but also with ambulance service, we have an ambulance revolving fund, which funds shift coverage. So we have funding available for shift coverage 24/7, 365, plus or minus. Now we need more bodies to cover those shifts, so we have 4 full-time positions, and that's terrific. Our part-time positions are positions that work a regular shift, typically 1 24-hour shift a week, and that classification for Barrington's personnel policies makes them eligible for things like earned time accrual and short-term disability benefits. And then our per diem employees, that's our roster of their, maybe they came up through Barrington for training and they work full-time in the city of Dover, and we put out that we need this shift covered, they're available, they come in and fill the shift, but it's not a regular schedule that they work, it's not a regular shift, they're on our roster. There's also, our per diem members are also like our call members. So, the 6 folks that responded from Barrington to the Longshore Drive structure fire last night, 4 of them were probably per diem. Maybe a couple of them were the part-times that responded like as a call member. But so it's kind of a distinction for our purposes in how we classify employees in our personnel plan. Does that make sense?
yeah, it does. Thank you.
Pretty much what I was just saying. You did good, Connor. You did well, sorry.
It's a challenge. But the warm bodies, that's the important part, right? We just figure out how to pay them and schedule them later. Okay, I think, Mr. Chair, we might be ready for public comment.
All right, anybody has anything they want to say, any questions they want to ask? Oh, it's a lively crowd. Nothing? Your presentation was so good, they have no questions whatsoever.
Terrific. Last slide, next steps. So the ask, as we went over in the beginning, this is a strategic plan that was approved by the working group to bring forward to this group. We are asking the select boards to consider approving the strategic plan to set a guide for the process moving forward. Obviously, the biggest part of the strategic plan, which hasn't already been done or isn't already happening, are the long-term goals, which obviously we just spent a good deal of time on. And something we haven't talked about, which doesn't have to be defined perfectly right now, but some sort of timeline for those long-term goals or next steps. If a joint meeting is the venue that this group wants to hear these updates, or if we want to issue reports and review those at a regular select board meetings. And then last item there is a directive from the group to have the working group continue on this. So pick your pleasure which topic you want to address first, but how do the 3 select boards feel about those next steps?
Aye.
Fine. Well, then let's talk about timeline. So, oh, sorry, please, Mr. Rancher.
I was going to say, I think the easy one is, do we want the working group to continue? I would suspect that there's a lot of nodding heads around here, I don't know that we need a big vote. And there's no volunteering from the working group, so look on you, we're gonna beat you up. I think we can eliminate that as something to discuss. And I think probably the strategic plan, adopting a strategic plan then sets how we set up the timeline. I think that's the sequence I would order this in.
Expectations for timeline. I mean, it's enough to say as it comes, right? As the chiefs have capacity to spend the time on this and the working group can process it and package it up into something. But in terms of, especially those, first 6 goals of starting to look at those items, I mean, these are conversations which will come before the boards for talking points as issues in these categories come up. And so is this something that in the next 12 months, the expectation of the boards is that we find a way to address or really dive into these 6 goals specifically, and then the 12 months after that is an evaluation of the next, say, 5 goals, where it's a little more open-ended on how long it might take to implement those later goals, if it still makes sense, right? They're constant check-ins through the process. For the expectations of the board members. Mr. Avery Jackson?
As far as chunking them together, I think number 6 needs to be up with staffing model.
Right.
Not down in a whole other block, yeah.
Yeah, I apologize. This was just the how they broke on the slides, but I think 1 to 6 seems to be that break. I'm seeing head nods. 1 to 6 seems to be that break of the first set of goals, maybe not in any particular order. Mr. LaCourse, did you have something? I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I think we're moving in the right direction. It's hard for me to work on a timeline because I'm not the person doing the work. It's easy to just lay it out and say, I'd like to see something done within 3 months, but I know that's not going to happen. I don't think you have to go by goal 1, 2, 3. They could stop wherever they wanted at this point, obviously the working group. But obviously it must be that some aspects of this drives another aspect. So I guess I would lean on the chiefs at this point to give us a little bit of view of where they think is a starting point and what might follow afterwards. That'll give us a better idea about maybe we should have a quarterly meeting or something, and definitely an annual meeting, but maybe something semi-annual at this point where the groups can all get together, because I do feel the combination of all the boards and all the working people in this group is very important.
A logistical thing, Connor. I believe when the 3 boards authorized the working group, we authorized it through today, basically. So I would ask if the 3 boards are interested, I think they are, of reinitiating this particular group and give them a longer charge in terms of their time frame. So hopefully we can do that, because that's what is needed. Because the people that bring to the table, the people that are on the working group, are going to have to deal with all these. So if we can reinvigorate the particular group, that would be good.
I agree. Relative to timeline, Chief Nemeth did put some draft dates in the initial document, and we felt as the working group that maybe it's better to bring that forward blank. But I think you make a very excellent point, which is the folks doing the work ought to have some say in what a reasonable timeline is. So,
I think in my opinion, and I'm not speaking for John or Tom who aren't here, but we had 7 meetings since June 16th. We got a lot of data and we collected a lot of material that we need to move forward. I think what I would like to see is us to continue working on the short-term goals for now. Maybe give us by the end of this year, and then maybe starting in January, we look at the long-term goals. We're not fully complete with the short-term goals. We need to do the response matrix, the mapping. I'd like to finish that first because I think some of that might also drive the long-term goals. So I would ask maybe January, February, we start with the long-term goals. In my personal opinion as well, the long-term goals, like I think Dale talked about it, this is gonna take 3 to 5 years. I mean, we can sit down, work on these goals, come up with a lot of good information, continue having these meetings, but to get to the end of this is gonna be 5 years from now.
I believe we only have a year and 6 months and 2 weeks. No, 7 months.
You just go look at the background of his phone, it'll tell you.
So maybe we should split at this point, have a vote to continue on all the short-term goals and then have a pause. And this group reports back at the end time, and we are here in mass. It might work that way.
Second.
I just don't want to handicap them and hold them, I don't want to hold them back from working on long-term goals if I'm sorry. I would consider maybe allowing the long-term work if it presents itself the opportunity.
Oh, absolutely.
The way, I'm sorry, maybe I misheard you what you said, but the way I heard it was almost only short-term goals.
No, not at this point, but I just want to give some kind of formal deadline with a report back to this group in mass
I see.
of all the short-term goals, time permits, and obviously, as these short-term goals are being completed, they're gonna move into the long-term goals, there's no question about it.
Thank you for that. While I have the mic, if I could just ask the other boards that are here a question that I think we're all facing right now, and that's our budget for next year, right? We're all working on or, struggling with our operational budget. In Madbury, we've already made a significant increase to our fire department's operational budget just to try to do something, working with Chief Purley on what we have. But of course, we're now looking towards next year, and what does that 1 year operational budget look like in light of the unknown, right? Because this work is being done, but we don't have, any official agreement to do this stuff yet and everything. So I'm just curious what the other boards are doing related to their fire budgets, if you have any tips, guides, information to share with us, because I don't think I have anything more to share. I'm not keeping secrets, but that's kind of what we're looking at, is we're trying to responsibly increase the operation budget in Madbury so that we can start to build towards being able to do these things.
Well, and with apparatus and equipment, what to do with the CIP, and
The
what
same.
do we actually need to budget for?
That too, right? Mapping out.
There is $1 million out there, you guys allude to, but how can we push it back farther?
So one of the things that we do in Barrington is a lot of long-term planning. We have multiple, capital reserve and revolving funds that we pay into, even though we don't necessarily know that in the next year we need to buy X, Y, and Z, but making sure that there's always funds in reserve and looking at the lifespan of the equipment that we have working now and really leaning on, our chiefs to let us know what the more long-term goal looks like, so if we need to put something to the voters now so that we're not surprised in 5 years is, has been a really important thing that I've learned. I mean, this is my first year on the select board, but I've learned that long-term planning has been really key in kind of keeping things as level as possible. There's always going to be spikes, but that is something that I think Barrington does a really good job at.
I guess as it relates to the operating budget, the town of Barrington is budgeting for status quo in 2026 for the fire department. Our chief prepared as it relates to the capital reserve contributions and the equipment replacement schedules that Samantha was talking about, this is what the status quo looks like, this is what continuing down this path looks like in terms of equipment replacement. And he also prepared, this is what it could look like, that is, this is a possible future. And so starting to talk about it in that way, but when it comes to appropriating real dollars for an operating budget and capital reserve contributions, maintaining the status quo, because I don't think Barrington knows enough about what 2026 could look like to confidently make 1 year operating budget decisions or even capital reserve contribution decisions different based on this work.
Chief will have to correct me, but you're going through what we went through 5, 6, 7 years ago, and it's painful. I don't want to sugarcoat it for you, but it's painful. One, in terms of the chief had very significant issues in terms of finding people, and also from the expense side in terms of paying those people so that they don't drift off to other departments. And I don't behoove those people, they make decisions for themselves. We pay a respectable wage, but if they can go to Durham and get $20,000, $30,000 more per year, that's their choice. And I don't fault them for that at all, but that's what we were up against. And Chief's done an excellent job in terms of finding people that appreciate the department, appreciate the particular environment he's created. But that is a long-term thing. And it's, just for me, I wanted in the department, and it was painful for me to go through it. So that's not the sky is falling, but it's not rosy. So that's my only advice to you, and it's something you just have to go through because you need that particular service. And the thing, we haven't talked about it because I know the fire department, the police department are not friends. That's what our chiefs tell us. But the same thing with you guys, with police. You know, if I live in Madbury and it takes me X number of minutes to get response, sooner is better. So, but yeah. So you're probably not gonna talk to me anymore. You don't like what I told you, but that's just my perspective.
And I'll say, and we've talked about this in the meetings, that 10 years ago, we were losing all of our part-timers and on-call members to these major departments. The atmosphere that we've created, we've looked at the salary of the STEP program, and we've added separate bunk rooms for the firefighters here. We've now stolen 3 firefighters from big time departments. We have one from Salem, one from Concord, and one from Durham. Also, the period of time when we were losing all of our on-call and part-time members to the bigger departments, they're actually all back and they're all of our part-timers now. So at one point in time, 5-10 years ago, the senior member of our department with experience only had 1 to 2 years. Now we're looking at 15 to 20 years because those part-timers are coming back. And we have firefighters that work in Manchester, Concord, Durham, Dover, Rochester. So it was extremely hard all those years, and I worked in many, many shifts to help get us through this. And the firefighters that we had on staff, they trusted me. They said, this is gonna be our goal, this is where I wanna see it. I want the 24/7 coverage. I talked to the board years ago about this. I'm gonna keep coming, bugging you every year for a full-timer. And we got to this point now where we're at, but it's been my whole career that we've gotten to this point, so it's definitely a struggle.
To bring us to a conclusion, I'm hearing that we ought to set a time frame for meeting again. It seems like these have been productive. Looking ahead to what schedules we're going through, maybe sometime after town meeting season is a reasonable time to try to set a date to get back together. I'm seeing some head nods. I think it sounds like there's motivation, although we'll summarize it into a motion to charge the working group with continuing to work on short-term goals and starting to approach long-term goals. I think what the chief mentioned on let's wrap up the short-term goal progress and then start focusing our energy on the long-term goals. So Lee has a fiscal year, July to June budget. Your town meeting is still in March.
Right.
Right. So everybody has town meeting in March. So, looking at sometime towards the end of April for a joint meeting. Does that feel appropriate in the annual cycle of things?
It's about 6 months.
Yeah, so it's about 6 months. Okay. So maybe we'd be looking for a motion to authorize the working group to continue extending the charge with the expectation of an update joint meeting sometime in April, where the group in the meantime will work on continuing short-term goals and starting to implement the long-term goals. And maybe as a separate motion, we'll consider adopting the strategic plan.
So moved.
Okay, so we'll start with the continuing the charge.
You
Second.
have to do their own vote, right? You can't vote as.
Is this a posted meeting for all 3 boards or not?
It's supposed to be for all 3 boards. I think operationally, for the purpose of each board's minutes, recording a first and second from each board makes sense. It's pretty easy. So for the purposes of Madbury, who would make that motion?
Mark.
So moved. Terrific. And seconded by?
Me.
Terrific. For the purposes of Lee, we heard it first.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Hawthorne. Purposes of Barrington, I have Mr. Mantrek, seconded by Mr. Sakosha. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Terrific. For the purposes of the strategic plan, So we haven't made any adjustments to the stated goals or objectives. The strategic plan as presented would be the proposal to adopt for the work that has been done and to be done. From Madbury, a motion? Adopt the strategic plan?
Hold on a second, we're chatting.
Oh, I apologize.
No, the group approved it and adopted it. The group approved this.
The work.
Now we're asking for the boards to actually adopt it. And just keep in mind that the long term specifically says draft, because it just going draft forward.
Dan, did you take that photo?
Yeah.
Did you see my reel today?
Adopt or accept,
We're just wondering if this is something, because we really haven't looked at this and talked about it as a group, if this should be the individual board votes at our own meetings. Yeah, because again, we really haven't talked about it within ourselves, so, because the other boards, I assume, talked about this, or have you guys? Yeah, and it's a little bit different than doing with all three boards together, And this is one you don't need to know right this moment to press, you got the timeline, so. Sorry to stick my neck up there like that.
No, and I think that the purpose of getting together is just what you mentioned, let's find the process and make sure that we review things appropriately. I think the value of each board spending time on the strategic plan separately could certainly be more of a deep dive into those long-term goals, the descriptions and objectives, and any feedback among them. And so maybe the charge to the three boards is at upcoming meetings and maybe before the end of the year, because that seems like the timeline before we transition to long-term goals, is to set aside some time to look at the strategic plan and specifically the long-term goals and provide any feedback, and the working group can aggregate that feedback and put something back out for approval. Seems like a reasonable approach.
Reasonable.
Terrific. Any other business that we need to attend to as a collective?
Can we authorize the working group to continue? Because we haven't done that.
I think we did that in the first one.
Yes.
I think it was a
It was a
bundle.
combined
Yeah,
motion.
that was an omnibus.
All right.
Pretty good.
Good word.
Threw me into the omnibus.
Yeah. Okay, anything else from the working group?
Now that they've approved that, can we have a working date for our next meeting?
We should talk about that. I think we can talk about that offline.
2 weeks from now.
I think part of the next phase of the working group probably doesn't require bi-weekly meetings. I think there's a lot of work that the chiefs need to do and that need to be done by staff and with check-ins with the working group to kind of keep things going. So I think we need to think, rethink the schedule and the meeting schedule. So probably a debrief meeting from this, which we could certainly stick around to find a time for that. And then establish a schedule moving forward. Any closing comments, please?
Would it make sense, the boards are all gonna go back and discuss and approve or not, or give some feedback? Sorry. I just wondered, do we wanna wait for that feedback before we schedule the first meeting, so that way the group knows what the feedback was as we start back up, if each board could provide that feedback, in a timely manner? Does that make sense?
That seems reasonable, so maybe a next working group meeting sometime in January?
I agree. Yeah, absolutely, because Madbury might have a different vision what Lee does. It's a good opportunity in Barrington as well.
Absolutely. Okay, any more closing comments? I'll circle around this way.
Thank you.
Thanks for everybody's hard work.
Appreciate it.
Works much.
Very impressive group.
Perfect. Motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Members of the working group, let's get a quick picture, if you don't mind. Oh, no, hey, sorry, man. Oh, yes, you are.
You're an action back.
Miss Cottle. Tiffany.
Oh, did you? Yeah, so I'm like, can we bring that in?
Hey, Tiffany.
If you guys are all feel like you should take it.
Do you guys want to vote on Lakeside Oaks? Okay. Let's do that. We'll take a quick picture, then we'll do that. Is that okay?
But now they have thousands. Shoebox. Went down. Just don't
I'm not
There's a question, something to do with some towers. Let me find out about that. Because they're, I think, Block 5 left them. They were supposed to take them, and I don't know if there's some reason. I don't know. And I was like, if they just want them, I must shy.
We're really so much way up here.
If they'd have known, this was it.
One of those days.
Oh, we're all doing this? Sorry.
This is Timothy.
I will. Deb has not met you, so I wrote a secret on here. There's Will. Oh, here, Alex. We get one of the working group first, and then we can bring the other select board.
We set up a, we all right?
Tiffany, I'm sure they wouldn't let her on.
No, they were.
Do you want me in front?
Oh, I wish I called that.
Gotta be
The camera caught her.
Okay, perfect. Oh, yeah, we can screenshot that later in the YouTube video. Please do. Yeah. I'm gonna put on a month and I make sure you when you retire.
I don't know if you were CC. Do other select board members want to come in? Yeah, you're good.
We're good. We appreciate it.
Sounds good, Glenn.
Now I need to.
Hey, guys.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm gonna make a
I think I warned you. Well, anytime I can help. I'm gonna find some seat.
I know a lot more about the fire.
I just added it to my iTunes today. You're welcome. You're
No, exactly, trust me, like, I wish my problem for you. Stand up for a second. All right, take care.
Are you through Palmer's here?
Possibly,
Okay.
Okay, great. So, I never asked. I thought that might be a sensitive thing, so I never asked. Perfect. Very willing to do it. So I want to hear that. Thank you.
Yeah, so I don't think it actually
You're
is
more than welcome, sir. Yeah. 30 jumps, 80 seconds.
But it gets to be like 10:30.
I was in the visual engineer.
Trying to make sense of everything. We'll certainly have a good update for that meeting, but, you know.
Yes, sir. It did disturb me in the land. Thank you. All right.
There is a lot of, I was impressed when I read it, to review it. I mean, I wish I had read it, like when I joined the commission. But they might want to even as a city.
What are you doing over there?
Hi, guys.
Hey!
Everything waiting for us to sign, because we can't get it. Andy's gonna walk back and forth 20 times.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Exactly.
10 minutes.
Thank you for running the meeting. Appreciate it very much.
There was a couple of things.
Yes, you as well. Thank you. Yes. Thank you. Yeah, good luck for the rest of the night.
Yes. Not over yet.
No, I understand
To
that.
create something. No,
Okay.
no, we've only.
Oh, wait, I got my
For the transport.
Do you need the projector?
They have a whole section
Yes, but they're not.
as part of it. No, the trails has a whole section.
You all set?
Yes.
All right. So they adjourned their meeting, but we didn't adjourn ours. So we're on public comment. So if anybody has a comment that they'd like to make, please come to
The middle?
the middle and address your comments to the board and not to the audience, and you're limited to 3 minutes. Anybody interested? No. Okay.
Oh, there we go.
All right, appointments, library trustees, Annie or whoever, Deb or whoever. You- all
There's
three
plenty
can
of
come.
seats here, if you'd like to all come on up.
Yeah.
You can fit over the comfy chair.
We'll sit by this one, because I have the smallest voice. Anna Marie Gazowski, library trustee, and the rest of us are here too. We packed food, brought it together. So, last month, we met with SMG Architects, and we went through 3 different proposals that they had for us. And we worked and selected one, and that's the one that you have in your documents. We got that on the 30th of October. And we like this proposal a lot because it has a lot of good things to say about it and to say to us. And therefore, we'll just go through the reasons why we chose this. And if you have any questions after that, then, please ask us. So this is going to be set on a concrete foundation that's 11 by 13. Its entrance is going to be on the west side of the building. And the roof extends over the entrance, over the ramp where it meets the entrance, and partially over the deck. The roof has a slight pitch, and we'll have a diverter to mitigate the rain and the melting snow. The roof material will be either rubber or metal, depending on cost. At this point, we're not sure. The walkway leading to the ramp has a slope of 1 in 20. The ramp slope to the entrance decking is 1 in 12, and the length of the ramp can be adjusted if necessary. The structure is set back from both existing contiguous library buildings, staying well within the existing footprint, and will have windows overlooking the deck and the parking lot.
With its 2 airtight doors, the vestibule will be much more energy efficient, and a small electric heater can be put in that vestibule, set at 55 degrees only in the winter. The book drop will be relocated, which would be to the right of the ramp, and this will help with snow removal and snow pushing into that area right beside the vault. Okay, some of the suggestions that we've had from staff and from also patrons, consider for this interior space, consider shelving for an ongoing book sale, a community bulletin board, storage for strollers and inclement weather gear. And the deck itself has lots of purposes that we think are very important. Its surrounding border wall will be constructed of composite material, which will require minimal maintenance. The deck border will have a shelf for seasonal pots of plants, and the deck structure will be equipped with a trap door to allow access to the bulkhead basement entrance. So looking at all of these things that we have pulled out to points that we thought were very important for you to know, what the next steps would be for us would be to work with the architect to flesh out the design and the costs. And we need to solicit RFPs. Mark has started working on those. And we're going to take 3 from local building firms. And planning and zoning, they don't think that that they need to have a public hearing unless, because it's not a change in structure. It's not big enough for a public hearing. And we hope to, and we will continue to keep the select board up to date as we go through the project. Any questions?
Any questions?
I think there were some concerns about the conservation on that space. Have they weighed into this?
They have, and in fact, there are a couple of people from the Conservation Commission here tonight, and we've been talking with them about the fact that there could be a rain garden that would accept the snow melt and the rain coming off the roof.
Yeah, we'd like to, Mark Nelson, Library Trust, we'd like to divert some of the water of the new roofing, and probably some of the old roofing too, from going into the bog, but rather being intercepted into a rain garden there on the side, which could also be used for instructional purposes, New Hampshire native plants and that kind of thing, which other libraries have been pretty successful at doing.
Just to be clear, though, that's not part of.
No, it's not part of the project. That's another step down the line. It's another grant we need to get, or donations,
But
whatever.
there's no concern about the wetlands and all of those things from the Conservation Commission?
No.
Okay, all right.
Not a concern.
Well, I must say I'm pleased that it stays within the footprint of what was the disturbed land, so I think it's pretty good, and does have the ramp, which is good, and the outside area for people to sit and have conversation, because I think it carries with the library an opportunity for more people to socialize a little bit more, so appreciate it.
It's actually less so if you look at where the library ends, the existing building ends, and where the disturbed space is. This actually comes in farther from that. So.
We've been really pleased working with SMP. They've been very agreeable and listening to everything that we say to them, and they've been good for us.
You know, we think if we can award the project sometime over the winter, can't really break any ground until the frost has gone out of the soil, but we can definitely make sure we don't lose the grant for the ADA ramp that we've got.
And do you have a vision what the cost would be? Even now, just a guesstimate?
In the financial planning tool, we put 275.
Okay.
And the architect believes that that's pretty close. I mean, obviously, we have to price out the materials, which would be the big factor today. But yeah, that's what we're marching towards.
Any other comments?
I don't know.
Okay. One thing I have a concern about is you're gonna use some foundation money, because up until this point, the
Yes.
town's been paying for everything.
We're
Yes.
gonna use it all.
We're gonna use everything they have.
It's going.
Alright. The only other concern I have is the vestibule is still bigger than I anticipated. So really, that's the thing I have a concern about. And it's just too large.
One of the problems with that 8 by 10 measurement that you gave us, it's really difficult for us to deal with the ADA compliance of a wheelchair that needs to turn within that area. It's not big enough.
Well, even if it
Also,
was-
that's the outside dimensions. I mean, there's outside and inside dimensions,
Yes.
so.
So those-
What is your concern?
In terms of it
A foot or
attaching
2
to
foot?
the old schoolhouse, that whole thing in terms of roof lines and stuff like that, in terms of what they've shown us.
That is one of the trickiest elements in the
Yeah.
design, is how to meld all three roofs together.
Yeah, because I'm not sure how that particular sloping thing is tying into the 1994 edition, the one that's just off to the left as you walk
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how that's gonna look in terms of, how that ties in.
I guess that's why you pay for an architect.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, I'm
I
just-
know, I understand
That will come
what,
next.
I understand what you're saying. I'm looking at this and,
Yeah.
part of my past life was dealing with people that have live-in mobility, and, more space the better in the vestibule. You can't make it too tight.
And they'll actually have access to the deck as well, because that entrance onto the deck is ADA compliant, obviously.
Excellent.
So they'll be able to enjoy the outdoors as well.
This is all the supporting documents.
All right. Any other comments from the board?
No.
Any? Mr. Tappan?
Anything to the audience?
Yes, we don't have a podium. If you want, you can come up and use mine. I don't-
I see this.
John Tappan, 187 Stepping Stones Road. Two questions. First, it doesn't seem like the select board is getting the process that they asked for when they asked that when the architect got to the point of having 2 or 3 designs, that those 2 or 3 designs would be brought to the select board so that they could see them. That was requested?
That is not my recollection. My recollection is that we would solicit
No.
from the architect 3 designs, and that we would pull those together for a final design that we would
No,
present to the
at
select
that
board.
meeting, I suggested that the select board should decide at which step should the library trustees come back, and it was after step 3, when the architect had produced 2 or 3 different designs. So you skipped that.
This is, I have to interrupt you, this is not a public hearing.
We are
This
here
is
after.
Very out of order.
That's right. Thank you, thank you.
We have a member from the audience saying what he demanded at a prior meeting.
He's asking a question.
I'm asking the question.
That was the question.
The select board asked the library trustees what the process would be. And as a resident, I looked to see the process, and the process that the select board said was going to happen did not happen. So I'm asking the select board, how did this happen? How did they overlook this? The other thing.
Point of order is all I'm saying.
The other thing is what's presented in the design doesn't give any numbers on what the change in the impervious area is. I mean, when you're building within the 75-foot setback,
We'll write that down.
a critical issue is what is the change in the impervious area? The architect certainly knows it. What is it? The new roof is 348.5 square feet.
Thank you. Any other questions? No? All right.
As far as I'm concerned, we're all set.
Do you need, why do you need to agree among yourselves?
So at this point, the motion is to let them move forward, getting the final drawings and the budget. Okay, and RFP.
Yep.
You all set?
Yes.
So move to approve SMP's plan for the library's vestibule design and grant the library trustees permission to move forward with said plan to build the vestibule as presented. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
No
Yeah.
discussion.
Oh, sorry.
Discussion. I guess I would just ask to see the RFPs before you guys move forward, considering previous things that have happened with contractors.
Certainly do that.
Is that a friendly
amendment?
Friendly amendment.
Friendly amendment.
And I think since the last operation, the trustees have
Okay.
come to me with agreements, and
Fantastic.
I've had legal counsel look at them.
Great.
I'm okay with it.
I'm fine with that.
You're fine with that too?
Thank you.
So, no, it's not a roll call vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion approved.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
So, regular business, town administrator.
Yeah, the primary thing that I had was the public hearing dates, and the proposed dates were, we had a slate of 3, that being January 5th, January 12th, and January 20th. That's okay with the board, we will.
20th is a Tuesday, right?
Yes, it's a holiday. And we are potentially looking at delivery session from February 7th with the ballot session for March 10th.
Okay.
That's good.
So we'll go ahead with that. Didn't have much in the way of other business. One thing I did have was Mark Nelson agreed to serve on the CIP.
Oh, thank you.
And has some experience at the federal level doing CIP projects, so he felt that he was qualified. James Lonano is actively considering it. He's a little concerned about time commitment. I had actually given him some of John's contact information to talk to John about what he thought the time commitment might be, as John had been on the CIP committee in prior years, so.
Okay, that's good.
I do need to talk to the board in non-public regarding an employment situation, which would be A, probably A and C. Yep, I'm just saying that because I wanted to give them a heads up.
Madbury set their tax rate last Wednesday.
Yes.
Where's our tax rate? Because we're way past, because we have to get out the bills, give them 30 days notice, so we're into the middle of December now.
We are, and we should have a signed 535. If it wasn't done this afternoon, it will be done tomorrow. I talked with Ethan Blevins at Plaza and Sanderson. They were waiting, strangely enough, the second half of the culvert grants. We received confirmation from the state that was through DES. It was ARM money. We received confirmation that we had received $108,000, and then we received confirmation that we had received $235,000, which was $10,000 less from the 245. Ethan called on Friday afternoon and said, "Could you get me an actual deposit record of the 245?" And so I sent him the information I had from DES and the treasurer, and he said, "Yeah, but can you get me something from the actual bank showing they deposited it?" So I was unable to find that. So I contacted DES today, and they assured me that they had sent the money and that they had sent me a confirmation email. And I said, I have the confirmation emails, I have the other docs, but I can't find where you actually deposited the money. I got an email about 15 minutes later saying that they were sincerely sorry, that they cannot find where they actually issued the ACH or a check. So they are doing that, which is, enables Ethan to sign off on the 535, as long as we determined that we hadn't actually received it yet. They actually have until 2028 apparently to give us that money, but assured me that they would give it to us in the next week to 2 weeks. But
So that means we have to get together sooner than later to set the tax rate.
We're meeting next Monday already.
Yeah. So hopefully, will that be in place by?
I am sincerely hoping. I'm calling Kat De Oliveira tomorrow morning to verify that the 535 has been done.
For FTP.
I'm going to be working, but I will have to wait until Wednesday to talk to Kat because they're off tomorrow.
All right. Yeah, that's the biggest thing. So, in terms of you'll have the forms, can you give us the forms beforehand? In
Yes,
terms of
just
what the okay.
Yep, she'll clear the form and I can give you paper form and then I can actually come live so we can play with it as you said it.
Okay. So, do we want to do that before or after the FTP meeting?
6 of one, half past the other.
All right. That's at 6, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What?
Which meeting are we talking?
Next Monday, the 17th, we're meeting to go through the FTP with the select board. Oh, what's on that calendar?
I think you're the only one that has it on your calendar.
Oh,
Mr. Tappan?
Why do I carry a calendar?
Tell us by supposed to know where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah, I have that meeting on my calendar, but
Thank
no,
you.
you don't.
So that's 2. 2 against what? 3 or 4, so.
Yeah, but you've got the 2 people who actually pay attention.
Whoa.
John Tabin, 187 Stepping Stones Road. I have a comment about your appointments to the Capital Improvement Program Committee. And it seems that the Select Board is still appointing people who will have divided responsibilities or vested interests. The statute says every municipal department, upon request of the Capital Improvements Program Committee, shall transmit to the committee a statement of all capital projects it proposes to undertake during the term of the program. So when you appoint someone who has an interest in a project, whether it's a department head or a trustee, library trustees, cemetery trustees that have projects, they first have to act as the committee, telling themselves as the interested party to report to the committee what they want, and then the Capital Improvements Program Committee shall study each proposed capital project and shall advise and make recommendations to the department, to themselves, concerning the relations of its project to the Capital Improvements Program being prepared. You need to have a Capital Improvements Program Committee that is not have a vested interest in those projects, but instead is free to look at the entire needs of the town and weigh those fairly. And when you appoint someone who has that vested interest, it's not fair to that person, and it's not fair to the town. And it also puts that person in a very difficult position if their project that they have presented to the committee turns out to be high on the committee's list of priorities.
Thank you. Something to consider.
No, absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
So yeah, do we all agree we're meeting next Monday then?
I don't know. I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm fine. I don't have my calendar with me. That's
I have a calendar.
It wasn't on my radar.
Yeah, what meeting was this? You must have missed it.
Okay.
Unless Andy sends me a notice, doesn't exist.
We discussed it literally at the last
Appreciate
joint
that trust,
ABC meeting.
That's the,
I remember we discussed it and
We
we said a
discussed
date,
it
but I don't
in-
remember what the date is because
The
I don't
17th.
have, I don't have my calendar.
But is that good enough for the tax? I mean, there's no opportunity to do it sooner, so I assume that that's the best date for the tax setting.
Yeah,
probably, yeah.
because we usually like to do it before November 1st so we can get it out
Yes.
so they're due December 1st or some, best time, but, the other thing is, do you have anything else?
No, I don't.
You're all set?
Do you want me to schedule that for Monday night?
Yep, 6 o'clock here. So, depending on how bad it is, we might need the defibrillator when we see what the number is, but,
Defibrillator.
yeah, we're all gonna have a heart attack.
Should be terrible.
So if you could send us the thing in terms of, because you're gonna show us live in terms of when we
Right.
change stuff, can you send us that form beforehand so we can see what it is?
Yes, as soon as Cat clears it, I can.
All right. So, nothing else? We're all set?
Yep.
Okay. So I move to accept the consent agenda as presented. Do I have a second?
Second?
Any discussion?
No.
No. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. So, I've already done this. And the only concern I had in the manifest is tolls.
Who's told?
It seems that certain individuals driving town vehicles on the turnpike didn't pay their tolls, they just drove through. And they did it multiple times. So we got, there's a fine, I don't remember how much the fine was, but there was a fine plus the toll charges.
Do we not have easy passes or something?
Well,
You don't, you have to go, they don't take cash anymore, and if you don't have
They
Easy
don't.
Pass, you have to go online within 24 or 36 hours and
Okay.
indicate that you went through the toll.
Okay, so is there a process by which the person who's not doing that can ask someone else to do that?
Yes. I can certainly do it through my office if I know it's happening.
so other than that, I didn't see anything else.
Yeah, I don't need these.
So. All right, so, next. Nothing in old business, new business, other business? Other business, I move to enter non-public session, New Hampshire RSA 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2, section A. Do I have a second?
Wasn't there a second section?
Just A?
Yeah, A will work fine, yeah.
A will work fine.
Okay, second?
Second, any discussion?
No.
Mr. LaForest?
Yes.
Ms. Hawthorne?
Yes.
Mr. Bugby, yes. Motion passes.
Yes. If you leave them on the page. Get back.
Is that you?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Somebody left it. Let's see how much cash is in there.
There was some discussion. No, it was this absolutely not.
I told you, find another town. Find another organization, because it's fucked up.
Kansas future.
Well, they have no choice, but.
Oh, she left.
He totally
Told her
leaves.
she's gone.
Anymore.
Yeah. I have to pay her less overtime.
Actually, I enjoyed this big en masse meeting. I thought that was,
It was fun.
I got to meet John Sundberg, who was a buddy of mine years ago.
Yep. Funny thing, we had a meeting on, what was it, Wednesday? So we got done, and I had to stop and pick up something at Wendy's for my son.
Yeah.
And who's in there already? Dawn.
Don?
Yes.
Oh.
So we had a chat about that, it was just funny, so.
Oh, yeah.
Motion to seal the minutes?
Motion to seal the minutes? Second? Any discussion? No, probably not. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Just a quick hopefully you've all looked at what Mr. Andy sent out. So I think it's pretty close to 600,000 in terms of increases.
Yikes.
That is not,
Yikes.
at least with me, it's not gonna fly.
Yikes.
So we're gonna have to make some hard choices, and I know you've been looking at health insurance, different options.
Yep.
So I don't know, I don't think that's gonna get us even close to the 600,000, but I don't know where else, in terms of things that we can look at. Paving, that's a little bit, but.
That's already a separate article.
Yeah, I know, but.
The real issue is labor, let's put it plainly, right? Because there was a step raise, well, the last March we voted
The
a
step
raise.
raise isn't in there, right?
The step raise, any proposed step raise isn't in there.
Yeah.
The
so
budget is what they're actually.
600,000 plus.
Oh, yes, so that would be,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I don't know if you can find out what that particular amount is, because it's not looking good.
No, I've got the, what I have, at the last meeting you'd asked me, the 2.5 step is easy, I've already got the table for that, but incorporating what it would be with fire and without fire, I can just use Scott's increase, but I really wanted to know what his step and track was, because his is much more in-depth. It goes by years of service, by rank.
So as soon as you can get that to us.
Yeah, it'll likely be tomorrow.
Okay, all right. Because the
So
ABC
what's
has.
driving the big 600 increase? It's the healthcare.
Healthcare is a big jump. You've got the 2 point, well, that isn't included, but it moved it up from last year's original budget item, certainly.
But you've got some salary increases, not salary increase, but increases in terms of salary. You've got the extra money in the town clerk's office for that particular position.
That's a big chunk of it. We have 2 potential candidates right now for assistant that would be willing to move into deputy, so I've been talking with the town clerk about that. One of the things I'm going to talk with her a little further is that I can't hire a deputy or assistant for her without her approval, but she can't hire one without the town administrator or the select board's approval either, so we have to take a look at both candidates.
Take a look at these numbers and see if you can find something. I went through them very briefly, and there's nothing really out there. And either you're gonna have to start, culling benefits in terms of health insurance, change the percentages in terms of what employees pay versus, what we pay for, or you're gonna have to start cutting services. Something's gonna have to give.
The other concern I have is when we start talking about the warrants from the CIP, if you want to call it that. Last time, there was big chunks going into the fire department, and I don't know if we might have to cut those, whatever the recommendations,
and
cut them in half or
The
something.
form that came out from John was, in terms of if we go with everything, the financial planning tool is 1.2 million.
Exactly.
So you can't afford, well, I'm saying we can't afford that.
No.
I believe it's 24 cents for every 100,000, something like that. It's kind of rough.
I haven't
So
recalculated.
600, that's what, $1.50 just for that? We're gonna get hit with the school.
Yes,
School's
we are.
going up. County most likely is going up. State education tax is
Went
going down. That's the only thing going down.
Hey!
Not very much.
100 grand.
Not very much.
Well, at least it's
But
going down.
it's gonna be another nasty, conversation in terms of, what are we gonna get rid of? So, That was more of a heads up than
Okay.
tell me your answers, but.
Yeah, and the numbers didn't get any better. I sat down and asked department heads to please carefully review their numbers, and Tom carefully reviewed his numbers and said, it looks like we've got last year's numbers in there, so.
No Kalia, that's 5,000 that we got back, but that's a drop in the bucket versus 300,000. He doesn't want to go forward with Kalia.
He's using the,
State one.
yeah, it's a similar approval that the state Division of Standards is offering now. They started last year.
Okay, and it's cheaper, free?
It is a little, it's not free, but it's cheaper to comply with.
Okay.
Yeah, he said we could get rid of the 5,000 for Kalia, so I'm not sure if that changes anything else, but.
You know, but it's like it, line by line sometimes. I've done it before, it's not easy.
No. So ABC meets 2 more times, and then they'll give us a presentation on December 10th. I believe this is the date. And after that, we're gonna have some serious discussions in terms of, you know, what to include and what not to include, so. Not good. Anything else? That was your bad news for the night.
That was not good news. Well, maybe just on a small positive note, the master plan is moving along.
Oh, yeah.
All the committees are now doing a final read and all the boards at this point. And we'll be ready to get to a penultimate draft, so we'll be able to put it publicly out for reading.
Yeah, Karen sent a message that she's asking the different groups to review their particular section.
Which they wrote before, then I reviewed it, then others reviewed it, and putting it all together, so it's moving along. Okay? A little bit of positiveness here.
Anything in terms of warrant articles for anybody else that they're requesting? I know we kind of reviewed them the last time a little bit, but
No, not at this time. I haven't.
nothing from
Nobody's
the
come forward.
planning board or anything like that?
The planning board is going to have some warrant articles, just
Oh,
for,
we should have asked you.
Yeah, they're gonna have some, we have to, all the stuff we passed in March, but it changed because of the state law.
Okay.
So there's modifications there. Also, we're discussing modifications about temporary signs, how long you have them out and when do you have to take them down, and separating between traditional temporary signs and political signs. So it's signs, and basically taking back a lot of the structural cosmetics. We had said at one time that the ADU has to look something like the main residence, we can't do that. So a lot of stuff we put in, we have to take all out. Okay?
the legislature passed a slate of
Yep.
planning and zoning sort of mandates.
Okay. But nothing from anybody else in
No,
terms of?
haven't seen any petition warrant articles, I haven't heard anything from the library trustees.
I was freaked out a little bit in terms of that list you sent in terms of our vacation and sick time liabilities, like, geez, 170,000?
Everyone left at the same time.
It doesn't seem like they're gonna leave, so don't worry about it. That's not a good time to leave.
Well, the municipal job market is fairly open right now.
I've been hearing that.
Yeah, there's the other thing in terms of what I was saying about Madbury. Madbury is going through the same, they're in a terrible state.
You can hear the pleading.
In a terrible state, because, you know, one thing you and I were talking about is in terms of employees. Right now, they have no really payroll thing, because everybody's part-time. But if they go to full-time employees, that's another layer of administration, which, I don't know if Eric's up for that or not, but they're just in a terrible, I would not want to live in that. And I think Steve.
Well, it sounded so pretty 20 years ago.
Oh, but Steve says, you know, what's one of the things he's been pushing in terms of, because they're DPW people, or road agent if they will, that they just quit or something, I don't know, they don't have anybody, but they spend $900,000 on road stuff, and Steve says, let me do that and give me the $900,000 and I'll do a better job than.
That's about $75,000 more than our budget for
Yeah,
about a
for
third
doing
of the roads.
Yeah.
Wow.
But the thing is that's what they're up against, and I feel sorry for them. And the thing is, Steve is talking about the response times for fire and police. Ambulance is pretty good, but I wouldn't want to live in Madbury and have a structure fire, because by the time they get there, your house is gone.
It's gone.
So, and they're paying higher interest rate, insurance rates because the response time is so bad. So, I feel sorry for them. All right, anything else? I'm sorry, I'm pontificating a little bit.
All right.
I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes.
It was nice seeing Dale Sylvia. I had to go.
Oh, yeah?
get a building permit. I thought he works in Nottingham though.
Oh, he might. I don't know.
I think he was like the building person in Nottingham. That's why I had to go to get a garage